Hello and welcome back to Marineford TCG. We're back in Tokyo. Last round, we saw the green-yellow law player take down a Rob Lucci, and we're here with the top 8. And looking at this top 8, looks like we've got 3 Bello Betty, we've got 2 green-purple Luffy, 2 green-yellow law, both laws making it through is crazy, and the one remaining blue-purple Luffy. Against all the odds, that horrific bracket, blue-purple Luffy has made it through to the top 8 at least. I'm pretty excited to see a Law play into the blue-purple Luffy. I really want to see what that matchup's like. Because I've heard it's pretty reasonable for Law. I mean, they have some pretty crazy aggression. We saw last game against the Lucci, able to develop 2 5 costs on his 5-don turn. It's pretty nuts. And the amount of searches, blue-purple Luffy doesn't really play the cards to deal with those searches. You'd think Lucci would be able to remove them, but he just wasn't able to see the pieces. That was a really exciting game. If you haven't checked out the top 16 game with the Lucci taking on the Law, make sure you watch that one first. But I'm excited to see what's going to make it into this top 8 game on stream. 3 Betties making it through to top 8 is crazy, right? This format, it's a very strange one. We're seeing so many decks like Betty and Zoro, incredibly popular and incredibly powerful because of the dominance early of blue-purple Luffy. But then we've seen some of these decks that can sort of crush the aggro decks. Decks like Enel, the blue-yellow Nami. They did well last time. Not present today, however. Interesting how quickly this meta can change. The only constant appears to be a lot of aggro and a lot of blue-purple Luffy. However, this is the lowest I think we've seen. Just one in top 16. Making it through to that top 8. Let's see if he can go all the way against all the odds. Just like he did in Aichi. Let me know what you think at this point is going to win it. I mean, Betty. 3 Bettys in top 8. Smart money may well be with Betty, just on a pure numbers basis. And looks like we are getting started. I can't see those leaders. Oh, and we do have blue-purple Luffy making it into the top 8 match here, live on stream in Tokyo. I'm really excited to see what this blue-purple Luffy can do. We've seen how many aggro decks there are to counteract him. He's making it here nonetheless. The strength of this deck's leader effect, allowing you to draw an extra card every turn, stack your deck, and then get those silly Sanji combos. It's just crazy how powerful that effect is. We saw that last week into the Nami. And here in the top 8, we're going to see blue-purple Luffy taking on the green-yellow Law. Okay, this is the matchup I really wanted to watch. I want to see how fast this green-yellow Law can be. Because once that Luffy gets to his late game, I mean, Luffy's late game is basically unrivaled in the format. However, Law's early game with all the combos, man, if this guy pops off, this could be a crazy matchup. Blue-purple Luffy, if he can go first and get that triple ramp, it might be a really rough game for the Law. But if Law's able to either stick first, or if the Luffy does not get that triple ramp, I think Law's got a real chance here. Cavendish, it's such a powerful card. And the Bed's probably not going to come up as much unless this Luffy's playing Raging Tiger. Sometimes you see the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, sometimes you don't. And it does look like the Law's going first, so Luffy not going to be getting a triple ramp, but going to be looking for that double ramp over the 2 turns. A Bon Clay would be a really good card for him to see in his opening hand. And we are going to see the opening hands here real soon, as the players set up, ready for this high-stakes top 8 match. For the green-yellow Law, you just want to go fast, right? You want to get as many dudes down as quickly as possible. And we do see a pretty decent hand here. We've got a nice Searcher to start off with. We've got a 2k in that of Pooh. We've got an 8-cost Kid, which isn't that crazy into the blue-purple Luffy, but can take away some of their aggression. Cavendish is your ideal play for that first character that you establish. And then the 5-cost Law, he's pretty good for your value, right? On 5, I imagine we'll see that Cavendish come down. Maybe do some leader effect if we can get something that we know in the top of the life, with something like a 3-cost Bonnie or a 1-cost Beige. We'll see, but this looks like a solid hand from the green-yellow Law. Keep wanting to say red-green Law. Yeah, solid hand for the green-yellow Law. Let's see what the blue-purple Luffy's got going on. You've got to expect his main mulligan targets are just going to be those ramp cards. Pudding is another card that's pretty good into Law. Law tends to have a really large hand size, so the Pudding could be good. We do see the Bon Clay. No second ramp, which is obviously not ideal. We do have a Nami blocker. We can maybe put that in life if we can get a Sanji and establish a 9-cost Sanji on 9. And then we've got a couple of 2Ks. 2K is always good to have, especially into these aggro decks. Not having a handful of bricks is very important, and Blue Purple Luffy sometimes just has a lot of bricks. It's just how the deck works. We are going to see these players getting underway very shortly. The Law player is going to be kicking it off. And let's go. Good luck to both these players. Let's begin. And we do see the Law player kicking us off with the Bonnie. No effect, of course. You have only one Don. Luffy player draws a gear second, so we do see the second ramp. That's very, very important. Having 2 ramp, going to let him use his leader effect a whole turn early, which is crazy. And we do see 1 Don coming down for the Bonnie's effect. And looks like we've got a Cavendish, a Luffy, a Beige. Okay, looks like he's eyeing up the Beige. Can't quite see the rest of those cards. Camera angle is a little off. But we are going to grab the Luffy there. Extend the amount of searches we have, very important. 6k into lead. We may give one of those 2ks here. Law, very aggressive deck. If you can deny a bit of the aggro just with a 2k, it's not too bad. You never know how big they're going to be swinging. And we do see the 2k of the Sanji ditched. Makes sense. Looks like he top decked a 5-cost Bonnie as well. That 5-cost Bonnie could be really important for resting some key characters or Dons as the Luffy player goes into certain key turns. Looks like we're taking the 2-cost Beige. So like I say, if the Blue Purple Luffy player plays Gravity Blade Raging Tiger to bottom 2 6s, that Beige are letting you put them in life both as a heal and to then re-trigger them out with your leader's effect. Very important. We do naturally see the Luffy take out that Bonnie Searcher. Use the Bon Clay, ramp up to 5. Very nice. Next turn, we're going to see him on 7. Could go with that gear second. Could also go with the Nami blocker. We'll have to see what he values more in that situation. But we are going to see the Law player, as expected, establish that Cavendish. Restand 2 Don. So important to get that down early. If he had that 1-cost Beige, we could have potentially put something in life like the blocker Law here to get even more dudes down. We don't have blocker Law. We could just gamble. But we're not going to do that. We're going to play out that Beige blocker and pass. You wonder if just swinging 6 would have been better there. And yeah, if the Luffy player does play God Thread, that Beige could be quite important to deny the removal on the God Thread. But it looks like he's just top decked a 9-cost Rush Luffy, which is obviously not very playable this turn, but having that massive body is incredibly important. So we've got 2 options here, really. We've got the Nami or we've got the Gear Second. The Gear Second will let him use his leader effect on the next turn. However, we could just go with the Nami and then go with the Luffy on the next turn, just 4-9. We're not really in a position where we're weak, so we need to use our leader effect. And establishing the Nami to get that cycle and develop a blocker could be pretty good. Not sure. Looks like we're going to see the Luffy player swinging in for 7 to start, and the Law player is going to take that. Gets, I think that's another Cavendish. 2 Cavendishes. Not better than 1, as it turns out. Once you've got 1 on the board, if you play another one, they turn each other off. So you really don't want to play another one, even as a vanilla, because it denies the effect from your first one. And we do see the Nami draw into, that looks like an 8-cost Kata, another Nami, and an Usahachi 2k. So the 8-cost Kata is an incredibly important card to establish in any matchup. Once you've got that down, it lets you do plays like Lin or Luffy, do the Don -1, and still use Gum Gum Giant while staying at 10 Don for your next turn to use your leader effect. Because you're at 10, you do -1 with the Luffy, then you ramp 1 back with the Kata at the end of the turn, and then you're at 10. So you can use Gum Gum Giant, go down to 8, and still proc your leader effect, which is an incredibly important interaction. We do, however, just see the Nami come down. 1 Don open, could use a Gear Second, and then we do see the pass. So the Luffy not going to get to use their leader effect on the next turn. However, establishing that blocker, it's pretty good. We are going to see a simple 7 Don play, drawing and then playing out the 7-cost Law. We'll see what he puts on the top of his life here. You could do the Bonnie to freeze a Don, or you could do the Law to try and get even more advantage, or just as a vanilla. Looks like we also have one of those 3-cost Bonnie blockers in hand, which is not bad if you need to stack something into your life. Looks like we are going with the blocker law. 1 Don on lead. Swing with the Cavendish, restand 2, very, very nice. 6 into lead, you've got to imagine he'll counter this one. You never know how big this leader swing is going to be. It could be 8. If this player has nothing else to do. And he does indeed counter with the 5 cost Nami, 1k. And then looks like we're going to see a 7. So maybe we'll see a 7 will play out the blocker law and then not use his effect, but then play the Luffy again after. That could be pretty good. It'd be interesting to see if this Luffy player decides to counter this 7 or not. He very easily can with the Frenosuke, and he does, okay. So we are going to be a little low on cards, it must be said, because we didn't take any lives, and we're not using leader effect this turn. So we're going to be a little low on cards as this law player does exactly the play we theorized, playing out that blocker law, replaying the Luffy to get double value. When you can double dip on your searches, it's crazy. It's so crazy. We saw that with Doflamingo in the past. Now we're seeing it with this green-yellow law deck. Getting to search multiple cards off one Luffy. Ooh, the value is there. And we do see another 7-cost law off of that Luffy. Going to be a really nice play for next turn. When you can continuously establish these big 7/9s, it makes it really hard for Luffy. Because whilst he can counter out of a 9k swing with a Gum Gum Giant, you can only realistically do 1 of those per turn. Gear second doesn't work. And it's just a big number. Really awkward to counter out of if you don't have the Gum Gum Giant. We do see the Luffy player on their 9 Don turn. Can't really see what he drew. It might be... No, I can't see what he drew. I think it's that card on the left. And we do see 6k into leader. And the law player debating whether or not to counter. Could probably take safely. But countering out of this is fairly easy. Although he is going to opt to take. We do see the take there. And that is... Is that another Cavendish? That's either a Cavendish or a beige. I can't see what that one is. Ooh. I think it's a 2-cost Hiyori. 2-cost Hiyori, not a card you often see. Has a very similar effect to the 1-cost beige, where you can swap a card in your hand with one of your lives. However, just extra consistency in being able to set up that leader effect to hit a good target. It's no joke. And that's clearly why he's playing it. He's going to counter out the 6 with the Nami blocker, with a Scratchman of Poo. Looks like the draw for turn was that 8-cost Katakuri. Yeah, that makes sense. We are going to see the cash in on the Mr. 2 Bon Clay as well. Will be interesting to see if he decides to target down this Cavendish, or if he's going to keep up the pressure at life. You've got to imagine removing this Cavendish is going to be a priority. That card regenerating 2 Don every single turn for this Law player is insane value. Extra 2 Don for Law. He makes use of those Dons like nobody else. And we are going to see the Mr. 2 Bon Clay swinging in into the Cavendish, copying the power of that Trafalgar Law, 7 cost, becoming 9,000, 9 into 6. Awkward number for this Law, because he only has 1 2k. So he's going to decide to block with the blocker Law. Not even going with the beige. Deciding that the value of the beige's anti-removal effects are more important than the Law's bigger body. And we do see the Luffy come down, drawing into a Giant. Giant, going to be very important, not this turn, but on a future turn. And we do see the block with the beige, protecting that Cavendish with his life. That Cavendish, like I say, so important for this Law to keep established, to allow him to just play with 2 more Dons. We do see a simple play as the Law draws into a 1-cost beige. 2k with the Luffy into the Bon Clay. You're never going to defend that. Getting the value with these searchers to just take out the Bon Clay always feels really good. Bon Clay, massive threat on offense, but very weak on the defense. And we do see another 7-cost Law hit the board, maybe putting that Bonnie into life. And we do see the Bonnie hit the life. So that Bonnie, it's interesting. You can either freeze a Don to potentially deny Gum Gum Giant, or you can just freeze that 10-cost Luffy. And I mean, that 10-cost Luffy's a pretty good target, right? He's a massive swing. If you can deny that, it's pretty crazy. And we do see the Cavendish swinging for 6 into the blocker Nami, restanding 2. This Luffy player does have a little bit of counter, but with no Dons open, can't use either of those Gear Second or Giant. And we do see the 2k ditch to protect the Nami. Potentially eyeing up 6 with leader. Maybe if you're doing 6 with leader, I've got to imagine that will be into the Nami again. So I think that removing that blocker so that it can't block later is very important. Which makes sense. Whilst Law, yeah, and he does swing into the Nami. Whilst Law does play Hody Jones, it's obviously unsearchable. You've got to just draw it. And I don't think they usually play 4 copies. It's usually maybe 2, which is interesting. And we are going to see this Law maybe once again swinging into the Nami. That will get the clear, which is pretty good, because this Luffy is going into their Tendon turn. And if they go in with nothing on the board but a frozen Luffy, that's pretty good. But it looks like he swung life. I wonder what made him pivot. It seemed like his strategy was to take out that Nami. Now he pivoted to life. Not sure on that one. He's going to play out that Bonnie though, with the leader effect, picking up the Luffy, freezing the big Luffy. Crazy value out of that 5/6 Bonnie, able to freeze any character that's rested, or any Don that's rested. The amount of versatility you have with that card in this lore deck, getting to play it out effectively for free, is crazy. We do have 4 Don remaining. Maybe we'll see a Bonnie blocker come down to set up something for next turn. And we do indeed see the Bonnie blocker come down. We're going to take that life and maybe put... We've got the Cavendish there. We definitely don't need more Cavendishes. That's the third. Okay, we're going to put the Cavendish back. Yeah, we don't need Cavendish right now. Like I say, with 1 Cavendish on the board, the second one is useless. And holding 1 Don open. Interesting that he didn't play the Luffy again. I guess with 5 dudes on the board, you can't really. Maybe he missequenced there a little bit, meant to play the Luffy. And then Bonnie over it. Not sure. And we do see the stack. The blue-purple Luffy. We've got 1 of each of the event. 1 Gear Second, 1 Giant. We've got a Red Rock, a Lin, and a Sanji. So there's no 9-cost Sanji in our hand. I wonder if he'll choose to establish the Katakuri this turn. The board of the lore player is very powerful, but it's not that threatening. So it looks like we're going to take the 2k Sanji. And looks like we're stacking with the... Is that the Gear Second on top? I think that's the Gear Second on top and then the Gum Giant, but we're putting them all on the bottom. So who cares? Who cares? Just getting that Sanji. Always important to keep your counter. Looks like the player is opting for that Katakuri strategy this turn, which is pretty good. Establishing that massive blocker that can swing and then block still. It's crazy. And we do see him draw for turn. What did he draw into? Looks like he drew into a God Thread. That's okay. You could remove one of these characters. There's no beige on the board to protect them. But I think establishing the Katakuri this turn is probably going to be his number 1 play. I wonder if we'll see this Nami swing again. He was happy to swing with it last turn, but with such a scary board, I do wonder if it would be willing to swing again. I suspect not. And with the lore player down as low as 2 life, we could see him decide to start pressuring life a bit here. And we do see 7 somewhere. 7 life. Okay, so is this lore player going to take or going to counter? 2k, 1k, very reasonable. Can happily give up that Cavendish in hand. And maybe either the beige or the Hiyori. But does opt to take. Takes the Cavendish, goes down all the way to 1. With these lore decks, they have ways to heal, right? They've got the 7-cost lore. And they also have access to 8-cost Kid, which can just become your leader, effectively. Forcing your opponent to attack the 8-cost Kid, buffing your leader effectively to 8k. It's kind of crazy. Although you do have to consider that this Luffy player plays Red Rock, which can remove the Kid. But then, if they have the beige on the board, the beige can put the Kid in life. So you get a heal. It's not too bad. We do see the simple play as we expected of the Katakuri. Not able to restand anything because Luffy is not a Big Mom pirate. Would be a totally different story if that was the case. And we do see the lore player. The camera is a little bit off of his hand. I think that's another... Is that another Cavendish he's drawn? Is that the 4th? No, I don't think... I can't tell what's in his hand. It might be another Luffy. I think it's a 1-cost Luffy that he drew for turn. So, a lot of options this turn. A lot of guys on board. We could just see this lore player decide to start swinging big. He's got a lot of massive swings. Can start with maybe 8. Yeah, and looks like we are going to see 8 from the Bonnie. This Luffy player does have 2 counter events, but it's got to choose which one he wants to use. You'd imagine, likely the Giant in this scenario. Very happy to ditch the God Thread. God Thread probably not a card he's eager to play out. But we'll see. He could easily take... We're not really in too much danger at the minute with 2 blockers and a Don open for an event. However, you've always got to consider the possibility of Hody Jones. Hody Jones, that card that comes down, can rest at 2 of any combination of blockers and Dons. Very tough for Luffy to deal with, but he does choose to take and gets another Nami blocker off the life. Not bad. This Law player going to consider their options. One of the tough things, right, is when you have a full board of dudes. I mean, Law can't really combo that well. Because if he's not playing dudes, he's not restanding Dons. And if he's not restanding Dons, well, you just lose a little bit of value. But, I mean, swinging out for big numbers, it's pretty good, right? If we did the 7-cost Law, that could be a pretty good play. Just to get that heal. And we are going to use that leader effect, picking up the Bonnie, revealing an X-Drake, and we're definitely not going to be playing that. But this Bonnie could come down again and freeze that Luffy. That Luffy just getting permanently frozen. Kind of broken. We do see the 6 get countered with the Zorajura from the Cavendish, restanding 2 Dons, of course. 6 from the leader is countered with the Nami, just 1k. And now we see that Law swinging for 9. This would seem like an opportune moment to use the Gum Gum Giant. And we do. One Don -2. Trashing that God Thread from hand, buffing our leader to 10 for the battle. And getting 2 fresh draws. And we draw into double 1ks, which is not crazy, but it is pretty good. And we see the last Law swinging for just 9, and we see the block 2. Oh, okay, and we do see that the Law player deciding that 8-cost Kid is the move now. Puts the Don on the Kid, going to protect the rest of his board. That Cavendish hiding behind the Kid, incredibly scary. And being able to restand 2 Don with no pressure of being removed by battle is very powerful. And we do see the Raging Tiger. We also see the Red Rock. He's got all of his events here as options. We've also got the 9-cost Linlin. Looks like a Gum Gum Giant. And the last card is a Katakuri. So I imagine the Katakuri is the lowest on his agenda. Red Rock to get rid of Kid. It's pretty good. But equally, the Linlin healing a life and getting rid of that Cavendish could be pretty powerful. And then Raging Tiger to get rid of the Cavendish and the blocker. Could also be pretty good. A lot of strong options for this player here. And it looks like he is going to take the Red Rock. And potentially stacking... Is he stacking the Gum Gum Giant to the top, it looks like? Nope, changing his mind. Maybe stacking the Linlin to the top to get the heal and remove the Cavendish. No, he's going to bottom them all again in... Wow, okay. That was clearly not what he was looking for. I'm not quite sure what he is looking for. Must have something in mind. Yeah, bottoming that Raging Tiger is kind of crazy. Raging Tiger very good into Law. Does get a Sanji, but we don't know the stack, so we can't afford to Sanji this turn. He's going to Red Rock the Kid. Okay, getting rid of that threat. Not too bad. And the Luffy not frozen, because the Law player did not go with the Bonnie. So this Luffy and Kata are now going to be able to apply a lot of pressure to this Cavendish. Which... I hadn't considered. I was expecting that Luffy to be frozen because of the Bonnie, but he went with a different play, didn't he? He went with the Kid. So being able to swing with that Luffy and the Kata, potentially for 2 10s, you've got to imagine that's going to get the removal on the Cavendish, which is really important. You've got to think he's going to want at least 1 Don open for that event, of course. But having double blockers, it looks like the Law's got a crazy board with the 3 massive dudes, but that Cavendish is probably gone. And having 3 blockers, I mean, it's pretty crazy. And the Luffy is going to start with 7k at life. Law forced to deal with this because the Luffy player could have Usahachi to rest that Bonnie and then swing 8 and 10. So really countering the 7 seems quite sensible. And we do see the ditch on the Hiyori and the Cavendish to counteract that 7 on 5. But that's just going to make it even easier for this Luffy player to deal with the Law player's board. When you swing 7 like that into life to start, really ask the question. Because the Law player's got to respect the Luffy's outs with that Usahachi. However, It then enables the Luffy player to clear the board more easily, which is one of his key goals, right? Winning the game's great, but if you can control the board as Luffy and just go another turn, it's usually fine for you. Luffy is very happy to just keep playing. He gets 2 cards a turn, gets crazy value, whereas Law, whilst he does have his value engine, you do eventually bleed out, and with no more Laws in hand to heal, it's going to be tougher for this Law player to stay alive as we progress through this game. Looks like we're eyeing up an 8k swing. Presumably, maybe into Cavendish? Or maybe even into life. We could see the Law player hit 0 here. But no, we're going to see 8 into Cavendish. If the Law player counters this one, he can block the Luffy swing with the Bonnie fairly reliably. There's no way this Luffy player is playing Usahachi and then playing board. That would be crazy. Holding Node on for Gum Gum Giant. I mean, maybe his balls are bigger than mine, but that seems a little risky. He doesn't even have the Usahachi anyway. So. But the Law player has to respect it. That 3 cost in hand actually a Zoro Juro. I can't lie, I've been looking at that thinking it was an Usahachi, but it turns out it's a Zoro Juro, just a 1k. And we do see the 2k, 1k protecting the Cavendish there. This Luffy, you've got to imagine, is going to try and swing into that Cavendish once more. Try and get the removal, but likely just getting removal on that Bonnie blocker. And indeed, we do see the removal of the Bonnie blocker. 3 Don open. Nothing really to do, but keeping 3 Don open is so scary. Plays around Hody, of course, very importantly. Because Hody Jones can only rest a maximum of 2 Dons and or blockers. So if the Hody Jones chooses to rest a blocker, can only rest 1 Don. And also, if you get a Gum Gum Giant and then chain that Gum Gum Giant into something else, you're gaming. Only event in hand is a Gear Second for now, but we don't know what that last life is. And the Law player doesn't know that. For all he knows, this could be Gum Gum Giant chain to Oblivion. So if he goes for lethal, it's a little risky, especially with 2 blockers on the board. Going to start with the 1 cost Luffy. When you've got that Cavendish on the board, you can afford to use 2 Don total worth of searchers, just for no cost. Pretty nice. And we do see the blocker Law in there. That could continue to get some value for this Luffy player. But you've got to imagine he's looking for potentially a Kid or a 7 cost Law to go another turn, because his board is strong. But his life is currently quite flimsy with no blockers and just 1 life remaining. We do know that life is a 2k, the X-Drake that he showed us earlier. And looks like he's eyeing up taking another Bonnie blocker. Could swap that life for something from hand and play it out. Maybe go with that Bonnie, get a freeze. But again, with no blockers on the board other than that 1 Bonnie, it's kind of risky. You've got cards like Usahachi, cards like Godthread, even Red Rock getting rid of the Bonnie blocker. If your opponent's at 0 life, I mean, it's not bad, right? It's certainly not bad. Tough spot for this Law player now. The Luffy player, if they were to really turn this one around, that 1 turn where the Kid came down, got no value, and immediately got Red Rocked without protection, was just so crazy for this Luffy player. If he'd gone with the Bonnie to freeze the Luffy, you wonder if this would have been a better situation for him, but it would have let that Luffy establish even more dudes, so it's hard to say. We are going to see the Bonnie blocker come down, swapping that X-Drake in life for a Bonnie, and then the Cavendish restanding 2. Law going to be able to play that Bonnie for no cost with his leader's effect, freezing the Luffy at least, taking away 1 hit, but with 2 more dudes on the board and the leader swing, and access to many cards that can remove the Bonnie, you got to be thinking it's going to be a little tough for the Law player to get here and survive if he uses his leader effect. But equally, if he doesn't, when the Luffy swings, it's a catch-22, right? Really tough spot for the Law. Does have another 7 cost Law, could heal and try and go again. Maybe not the worst play. Trigger out that Bonnie, then go with a heal, put the X-Drake into life. Could be the best line, but would have to play over one of those Cavendishes or Laws, so, I mean, he's not going to love to do that. Does go with the Bonnie, freezing the Luffy. Will we see the 7 cost Law come down once more? Looks like he's eyeing it up, and is going to go with the 7 cost Law, replacing that Bonnie, fair enough, with the Law. Gets one more Don on his leader, able to swing in for 7, but doesn't really matter because the Katakuri can block for 8. Although we do have 2 9s coming in from these laws. So that's something to consider. Luffy player with the 2 blockers and the gear second in his hand can counter out of this 7 very easily with the gear second. The gear second not letting you buff Katakuri is quite notable. And indeed, we do see the gear second used now. As the 7-cost law swings in. And the Luffy player is going to gets, another 1k. So he can block with the Kata and just give 1k, 1k. And keep both of these characters on the board, which is going to be incredibly important to deal with this law. He's got 2 cards in hand at 1 life. If we can find a way off the top 5 to get rid of this Bonnie blocker, I mean, I think lethal is, it's got to be all but a math win, right? We're just looking for something like an Utahachi. No Utahachi, but we do see the God Thread. We see the God Thread. The God Thread can remove the Bonnie. And then we've got what swings of, what's it like, 8, 9? Something like that. That's pretty good with only 2 cards in hand. A 7 guaranteed to take those cards all the life. And then a 9 guaranteed to take all those cards all lethal. And then you also have the Nami to swing with. Short of some crazy trigger, which we know isn't there because we saw the law put the card there for his life. I think this should be a win for the Luffy. We do see him take the Gum Gum Giant. Did he stack the God Thread to the top? Luffy, frozen of course. Does draw for turn the God Thread, very nice. And we do see the God Thread removing the Bonnie. And I think this is the game. We're going to see a swing of 7 from the Nami. 2k, 1k. Swing of 6 with the leader and the law forced to take. And then lots with the Katakuri. And that is it. GG's. Well played to the blue-purple Luffy. Able to overcome the early aggression from that green-yellow law. Develop those key blockers on key turns. That Nami blocker coming in clutch there at the end. I'm not sure if it was actually needed, but definitely guaranteed the lethal. Thank you for watching. I've been Marineford TCG. We'll be back with the top 4 tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe for that. Thank you for watching. Congratulations to the blue-purple Luffy. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.